Good morning. This is Go Figure Farm. I believe it's May 23rd, 2021. I just wanted to give a quick video on how I plant a fig tree. It's actually kind of dry in our area right now. We're in a bit of a drought, so I'm watering more than I usually would as I plant the tree. This is one I did a couple days ago. Basically, you can see the diameter of the hole that I dug out. Not super deep, but relatively wide, and I've kind of already started to backfill with soil this hole. I'm getting ready to plant this tree here in that hole. I also went around the perimeter of the inside of the hole with a garden fork, and I can just kind of demonstrate. So basically I took the garden fork and I stuck it in the side of the hole and kind of opened it up a little, and that's the idea there, is to allow the roots to escape the hole. Once the tree starts getting established, it'll make it a little easier for that. You want those roots to spread out and start growing outside the perimeter of the hole. Tried to get rid of the clod, the major clods in the soil as well, kind of break it down. What I'm doing right here is I'm taking a tool. Looks like this, and this is actually, it was a 3-prong fork, and then the other 2 prongs broke, leaving the single prong, and it's actually quite a useful tool for working on the root ball and getting the roots spread out. I try not to damage the roots this time of year, and especially with a tree that's already leafed out like this. But I do want to work on it a little bit and try to spread them out. If the roots, once they're spread out, if they reach beyond the perimeter of this hole, I'll prune them a little bit too, so they don't. You don't have to bunch them up in the hole. You want them to spread out straight, and maybe I'll get another clip of that. I don't think I'll probably have a problem in this case for this tree. But I'm going to try to, you want to spread the roots out, because if the roots are kind of all coiled up inside that root ball, then as the tree gets bigger and more mature, that can cause problems with the growth of the tree. At least that's what I've always been told. So that's what I do. So I'm going to pause it and I'll come back here in a second. Okay, so I think I've got them spread out about as good as I want them to be. So like these roots here are free, and I can spread them out when I plant the tree. I did lose a few roots off the bottom, but I don't know if these were going to be that useful to the tree. Anyway, they're on the bottom of the pot, which is here, you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and put the tree in the hole and kind of start filling in around it a bit. So just a minute. Okay, so I got the tree in the hole. I've started to fill in some soil around the root ball, so it stands up on its own. You'll notice that the root ball, the top of the tree here, the top of the soil around the root ball is somewhat higher than the grade, and that's by design. I want it to slope up a little bit towards the tree, and that's kind of how this hole is. And so the roots get good drainage. I have heavy clay soil. I think it's probably a little better for the tree. So I'm going to fill in soil. I'm going to break up those clods as I fill around it. And I'm going to start, in fact, before I do that, I'm going to start watering it because of our dry weather right now. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing, so I'll come back here in a minute. Okay, so one thing that I sometimes do, but I don't always do, and I'm not actually sure whether it's the best thing to do or not, is, so what I always do is I collect the sod, and I put it upside down on a tarp, and I let it dry out, if weather allows that. And then I may or may not add some of it to the hole. I did here, and I kind of went around the perimeter of the hole. I put the sod upside down. Some people say it's not a good idea. You can do it, but it slows the tree down a little bit because the tree is, as that sod decomposes, it uses a little bit of nitrogen. That slows down the growth of the tree. But I think you're also adding back the best topsoil. At least in my area, the best topsoil is right there in the first couple inches. So you're adding that back, so that's a good thing. I make sure that I bury it fairly deeply so it's highly unlikely it'll start growing, and actually the shoots would actually be able to grow up and see daylight, and hopefully it'll all just die there. That's typically what happens. So it's personal preference. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. In this case I did. So I'm just going to continue filling in. So one thing I was going to mention is if I do add the sod back, I make sure that I don't add the sod anywhere near the roots. So the roots would get established before they reach the area of the hole where the sod is, and hopefully by that time a lot of the decomposition will have already happened. The other thing I did is I added a couple shovelfuls of aged manure and some about a cup of lime, the granulated lime, not the powdered lime, but granulated, and about a cup of oyster shells. This is optional. I wouldn't add too much manure. Some people say it's not a good idea to add any because you want to encourage the roots to grow outside of the hole and not stay in the hole where the soil is more fertile. But I make sure to place it well away from the roots, and hopefully by the time, same thing with the sod, by the time the roots start spreading out and growing outward, by that time, and they reach that manure, by that time the manure will be to a large extent more decomposed, and the roots will just keep going as they spread out. Again, this is my personal preference. It's worked well for me. Okay, so I filled in all the soil I'm going to fill in around the root ball. I'm letting a little bit of water just kind of slowly drain from the hose, probably for 10-15 minutes, to make sure that root ball is totally saturated. I did put some of the sod around the perimeter upside down. In our weather today, I think it'll probably pretty much kill the grass if it's not already killed. And then I'm going to continue putting wood chips over the top, so it'll end up looking like this one over here when I'm done. So that's pretty much it. This is how I do it. I have good results, but I'm sure you can do it in a different way and also get good results. I think probably the most important thing, I think it's pretty important to not simply just take the root ball out of the pot and stick it in a hole and fill it in with soil. I think that's probably not going to give you as good a results as what you would have if you spread the roots out and cover them with soil. Make sure that the soil doesn't have a lot of clods. There's not a lot of air spaces. As you add soil, you can spray with water to also ensure that you kind of fill in those air gaps as well. So also I think it's important to make a fairly large diameter hole, and make sure that the grass, you have an area where there's no grass right up to the trunk of your fig tree. It'll get a much better start that way. So I'll stop there. This is Go Figure Farm. Thanks for listening.